The city streets were still draped in the soft gray light of dawn, and the air smelled faintly of wet pavement and freshly baked bread. While most people were still wrapped in blankets or rushing through their morning routines, Alexei, a single father, had already stepped outside. His worn shoes crunched lightly on the cobblestones as he made his way toward the small park at the corner of the street, a place where life moved slowly and the world seemed, for a moment, suspended. There, leaning slightly on a cane, waiting by the bench, was the old man. Every morning, without fail, Alexei would find him there, struggling with a bag heavy with groceries, shaking hands, and a stooped back that seemed to carry decades of stories. Alexei didn't ask questions. He didn't need to. He simply offered his arm, steadied the groceries, and guided the old man across the road. The cars that zoomed past didn't slow for them, but Alexei moved carefully, patient and calm, as if the world itself had slowed down just to honor their quiet ritual. Neighbors often peeked out of windows, some curious, some indifferent. "Why does he bother?" someone whispered one morning. "He has enough to worry about already." Alexei didn't hear them. Or perhaps he chose not to. His concern wasn't about what others thought. It was about a principle, a silent truth he carried in his heart: kindness was never wasted. His daughter, Mila, would sometimes accompany him, sleepy-eyed but eager to learn. She watched as her father's hands, rough from long hours at the bakery, handled the old man's groceries with care. She saw how he always smiled, how he nodded to the neighbors who barely acknowledged them, how he took time to ask the old man's name, how he listened to his stories about the war, about lost friends, about life before the city swallowed him. These moments, simple and quiet, were shaping Mila's world, teaching her that compassion was not about grand gestures or headlines. It was about showing up, day after day, without expecting anything in return. Alexei himself often reflected on these mornings during the short walk back home. The streets were empty now, the city slowly waking, and he could feel the rhythm of life, sometimes harsh, often unfair, but in that small pocket of time, helping the old man made everything bearable. He never imagined that this small act, so ordinary in its simplicity, would one day ripple through his life in ways he could not begin to imagine. For now, the mornings belonged to kindness. The city could hurry and honk and scurry past, but Alexei and the old man moved in a different rhythm, one of patience, respect, and humanity. In those moments, before the world fully woke, there was a quiet magic, a reminder that even in struggle, even in hardship, the human heart was capable of incredible, enduring goodness. And as they parted for the day, the old man waving a trembling hand, Alexei would look down at Mila's eyes, see a spark of admiration, and know that kindness, no matter how small, was a gift that could never be taken away. After leaving the old man safely by his bench, Alexei walked the few blocks back to his modest apartment. The morning sunlight had begun to creep over the rooftops, casting a warm glow on the city, but warmth didn't erase the weight he carried. Life as a single father was never easy. The tiny apartment they called home was cramped and worn, walls thin, and furniture patched and mismatched. Bills piled on the kitchen counter like silent reminders of every struggle he faced. Rent overdue, Mila's school fees, the cost of groceries that never seemed to stretch far enough. Alexei opened the door, and Mila, yawning and rubbing her eyes, greeted him with a sleepy smile. Her backpack hung loosely from her shoulders, worn from daily use. "Morning, Papa," she said softly. Her small presence was both a comfort and a responsibility. Alexei knelt down and ruffled her hair, hiding the exhaustion in his smile. "Good morning, my star," he said, his voice steady though his heart raced with worry. For her, he needed to be strong, dependable, unshakable. After breakfast, a simple meal of bread and tea, Alexei kissed Mila on the forehead and prepared for another day at the bakery. He worked long hours there, kneading dough, pulling trays from ovens, and greeting customers with the kind of cheer that masked his tiredness. His coworkers barely noticed the small sacrifices he made outside of work, the early mornings helping a stranger, the extra steps taken to make the world a little better for someone else. Some mornings, he wondered if all of it, his efforts, his kindness, was invisible to the world. Yet, no matter how heavy the weight on his shoulders, Alexei believed that goodness mattered. Even in the face of exhaustion, he understood that kindness was not a currency, it was a choice, a quiet act that rippled beyond the eyes that witnessed it. Sometimes, he would catch Mila watching him from the corner of the bakery, curiosity and admiration shining in her eyes. She didn't need to say it aloud, he knew she understood. In those moments, Alexei felt a deep pride. He was teaching his daughter not just to survive, but to live with empathy and integrity, to see the world through the lens of compassion rather than convenience. Walking home after a long shift, Alexei often replayed the morning's ritual in his mind. The old man's trembling hands, the slight smile, the faint nod of gratitude. He realized that these small acts gave him something money never could. A sense of purpose, a connection to humanity, a reminder that life's value was measured not in what one earned, but in what one gave. The neighborhood continued its hurried rhythm, but Alexei moved differently. He was tired, yes, but his heart was full. He carried both struggle and hope, exhaustion and joy, in a balance that only those who truly understood the weight of life could feel. And as he prepared for another morning, another small act of kindness, he held on to the belief that the world, even when harsh, had pockets of light, and that light, he realized, often began with the simplest gesture, lending a hand. The morning was colder than usual, with a sharp breeze weaving through the narrow streets, rustling the leaves in the park where Alexei always helped the old man. He tightened his coat around himself, balancing Mila's backpack and his own bag as he walked the familiar route. But today, something felt different. The corner where the old man usually waited seemed busier, almost unnatural. As Alexei approached, his eyes widened. Black, gleaming cars had pulled up silently along the curb. 4 imposing men in suits stepped out first, their posture rigid, their expressions unreadable. A moment later, a pair of sharply dressed lawyers followed, briefcases in hand, moving with a precision that made the city's usual morning chaos feel almost trivial. Alexei froze in the middle of the sidewalk, unsure whether to step back or confront this strange entourage. His mind raced. Had he made a mistake? Was something wrong with the old man? Then, the old man appeared from behind a tree, his cane tapping lightly on the cobblestones, but there was a calmness in his gaze, a small, knowing smile that immediately put Alexei on edge. "Alexei," the old man called softly, his voice warm yet commanding. "I've been waiting to meet the man who reminds me there's still goodness in this world." Alexei's breath caught. He had never imagined that his small, daily acts of kindness, so quiet, so unnoticed, would ever attract attention like this. He glanced nervously at the 4 men who flanked the old man, and then at the lawyers holding folders thick with papers. He wanted to speak, to ask questions, but words failed him. All he could do was stare. The old man gestured toward him. "Please, come closer," he said. "I've watched you for months. Every morning, through rain, through cold, through your own struggles, you have shown me in the world that kindness is not lost, even when it seems invisible." Alexei's heart pounded. He remembered the countless mornings when he had been tired, frustrated, unsure if anyone even noticed his small gestures. And now, standing here, the weight of all those unrecognized efforts hit him. This was more than recognition, it was validation. But why? Why would someone so powerful care about him, an ordinary man with nothing but a worn coat and a tired smile? The old man's voice softened. "I am not just a man waiting for groceries to be carried. I am someone who has seen the world turn its back too many times. But your actions, they remind me that even one person can make a difference. You, Alexei, have made a difference, not for me, but for life itself." Alexei swallowed hard, emotions threatening to spill over. Shock, gratitude, disbelief, and a quiet, deep joy mingled in his chest. He realized that this moment, the strange cars, the bodyguards, the unexpected attention, was the turning point, the moment when quiet compassion collided with unimaginable opportunity. For the first time, Alexei understood that life had a way of repaying selflessness, often in ways he could never anticipate. And standing there, on the quiet corner where he had performed so many unnoticed acts of kindness, he felt a profound sense of hope, wonder, and the undeniable power of humanity. Alexei's heart raced as he followed the old man and his entourage to a nearby cafe, still unsure if he was dreaming. The black cars waited silently outside, a stark contrast to the quiet cobblestone streets he had walked every morning. He glanced at the bodyguards flanking the old man, their stoic expressions unwavering, and then at the lawyers, who carried folders that seemed impossibly heavy with importance. Finally, They settled at a small table, sunlight streaming through the tall windows, illuminating dust motes that danced like tiny sparks of magic. The old man gestured to Alexei, his eyes glinting with warmth and quiet pride. "Alexei," he began, "I suppose it's time I tell you who I am, and why I sought you out." Alexei's brow furrowed, anticipation and confusion swirling in his chest. You've watched me," he whispered. The old man nodded, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Yes, every morning, I've observed your acts of kindness. Through rain, wind, or early morning chill, you have never faltered. You never asked for thanks, never sought recognition. And yet, your small deeds have had immense impact, not just on me, but on the people around you, even if you didn't realize it." Alexei swallowed hard, emotion knotting in his throat. He had never considered that anyone noticed the quiet hours he spent helping, listening, caring. He had always thought the world was too busy, too indifferent, too unforgiving. The old man leaned closer, voice gentle yet firm. "I am a retired philanthropist. For years, I've worked in the shadows, helping those in need. But watching you, a single father with so little, give so much, I realized something. The world doesn't need more wealth or fame. It needs people like you." Alexei's eyes widened as the old man continued. "I want to offer you a chance to lift the burdens that have weighed on your shoulders. Debts paid, a home for you and Mila, opportunities for her education, no strings attached. You have given so much. To others without asking for anything. It is my honor to give back to you." Tears welled in Alexei's eyes, a mixture of disbelief, gratitude, and overwhelming relief. For years, he had struggled silently, working tirelessly to provide for Mila, often questioning if it was enough. And now, here was a life-changing gift offered not out of obligation, but out of recognition for the simple, profound truth that kindness matters. He thought of Mila, of the mornings spent walking her to school, of the lessons he had tried to teach her about empathy, generosity, and human dignity. This moment wasn't just about him, it was about the life he could now give her, free from fear, free from constant worry. The old man smiled knowingly, as if sensing Alexei's thoughts. "Remember, true generosity is not about expecting returns. But sometimes, life has a way of honoring the heart, of returning to those who never sought reward." Alexei exhaled deeply, a weight lifting from his chest, and for the first time in years, felt the future stretch out before him, bright, full of possibility. In that small cafe, amidst the quiet hum of the city awakening, he realized that every act of kindness, no matter how small, could shape a life, and that life, in turn, could ripple outward, touching countless others in ways unimaginable. The sun was rising higher now, casting golden streaks across the streets Alexei had walked so many times before. But today, the city felt different, brighter, more alive, as if it had somehow recognized the quiet transformation unfolding in his life. Alexei stepped out of the cafe, holding Mila's small hand, her eyes wide with wonder. The old man watched them from the doorway, a faint smile playing across his face, and for a moment, Alexei felt the weight of every lonely, exhausting morning finally lift. The new apartment they moved into was spacious, filled with sunlight and warmth, a stark contrast to the cramped space they had called home. For the first time, Alexei didn't have to worry about scraping together rent or balancing bills on a knife's edge. He could focus on what truly mattered, being present for Mila, nurturing her dreams, and continuing to live with the quiet integrity that had guided him all these years. But the change wasn't just in material comfort, it was in perspective. Alexei realized that the world wasn't always harsh and indifferent. It could also be tender, generous, and profoundly human. The old man's gift was proof that kindness, even when unnoticed, never truly disappeared. It had a way of coming back, in forms more powerful than anyone could predict. Every morning, Alexei still walked the same streets, and although he now had the security and resources he had long dreamed of, his heart remained the same. He continued to help others, the elderly woman with the groceries, the young mother struggling with her children, the lost dog shivering in the cold. The world around him had changed, but his mission remained unchanged. To show compassion without expectation, to be the quiet light in someone else's morning darkness. Mila walked beside him, growing with each day in understanding and empathy. She noticed the small smiles, the nods of gratitude, and the way strangers' eyes softened when Alexei extended a helping hand. She understood now, fully, what her father had always tried to teach her, that life's greatest wealth was not in money, but in love, care, and the courage to act with integrity. One day, as Alexei helped another person cross a busy street, he felt a tap on his shoulder. It was the old man, once again, leaning on his cane, but this time with no entourage, just a quiet presence and a knowing smile. "You see, Alexei," he said softly, "the world is full of small miracles. They begin with people, like you, who choose to act when no one is watching." Alexei smiled, his heart full. He realized that his life, once weighed down by struggle and uncertainty, had become a story of hope, not because wealth or recognition had entered it, but because kindness had always been the seed. That seed had grown, quietly, steadily, and now its roots touched everyone around him, including his beloved Mila. As they walked home that morning, the city awakening around them, Alexei felt a profound sense of peace. Every step, every small gesture of love and help, every morning spent walking with an old man across the street, had led to this moment, a life rich in humanity, a heart filled with gratitude, and the unshakable knowledge that even the simplest acts of kindness could transform the world. And with Mila's hand in his, Alexei smiled, knowing that the story wasn't over. The ripple of compassion would continue, touching countless lives, one quiet morning at a time.